amazing artists. This week is all about our school mascot, the Mustang. So, this week is all going to be about horses. We're going to learn how to draw horses and do our own little spin off of them. And we're going to be reading Dr. Seuss's Horse Museum. So I chose to read you this book today because it's a kind of a long book. And when we only have 30 minutes of art, I don't really have a long time to read you guys this story. And so I love this book, and for many reasons, but it definitely goes along with our school mascot, which is a Mustang, a horse. So this is called Dr. Seuss's Horse Museum. And if you've never seen this, it's not actually a book by Dr. Seuss, but it says here, your tour guide will show you how different artists see horses and how those different visions create unique art. With reproductions of over 30 pieces of artwork, this is an exhibit you won't want to miss. Dr. Seuss's Horse Museum is based on a manuscript and sketches by the beloved Dr. Seuss. Did you know Dr. Seuss's real name is Ted Geisel or Theodore Geisel? The illustrator of this book, so the book right now, Andrew Joyner, studied the sketches and created illustrations that pay homage to Seuss's line characteristics and artistic energy while being uniquely his own. So, take a look. Dr. Seuss's Horse Museum. Art. What's it all about? This is what art is about. Art is when an artist looks at something, like a horse, for instance, and they see something that in that horse that excites them. So they do something about it. They tell you about it in any one of a number of ways. Artists have been excited by horses for as long as there have been artists. But what an artist tells us about horses and how they tell us is different for every artist. What an artist sees in a horse depends on how many different things, their background, likes, dislikes, you name it. So come with me. Let's look at how different artists have seen horses. Maybe we can find some new ways of looking at them ourselves. So all the different ways that people look at horses. Look it over. Think it over. Talk it over. When most people look at me, they just see me like this. But when an artist looks at me, they see me a million other things. Can you? So I wonder what that boy's thinking. So here's an artist, Susan Rothenberg, and this horse is called Axis. Some artists look at horses and only see its outlines. So here it's just the outline detail of the horse, not the inside of the horse, just the outlines of the horse. This is by Lentil in France. So it's kind of like we're going on a museum tour of horses. To other artists, like this Chinese sculptor, a horse is not an outline at all. A horse is bulk, a solid form. Oh, we learned about form this year. Remember, form, super strong, something you can hold, something that's three-dimensional. See how the kids can walk all the way around it? So sculptures have form. It's called Harnessed Horse by the Northern Wei Dynasty. So that's their take on the horse. A Japanese artist looked at a horse. What he saw was beautiful lines from head to tail. This is called Studies of Horses. So look at all the beautiful lines for their hair. Some artists look at a horse and find color. warm colors or maybe cool colors. Look at that baby coloring on that horse's head. Other artists are interested in shape. Oh, my beautiful horses, the Navajo pictorial blanket. So sometimes they put horses on blankets, not just in pictures. This artist looked at a horse and saw strength. It's called Horses Straining at a Load. They're pulling really heavy stuff there. Just like elephants are super strong. These artists looked and they saw speed. The horse in motion. They look like they're going really fast. A Spaniard named Velázquez painted horses by the dozens. He saw them as something for kings and princes to sit on while he painted them. Velázquez worked for the kings and princes. He never got any money from the horses. So some painters painted rich and famous people like kings and queens on horses. This painting is by a Frenchman named Monsieur. Horses to him were something necessary to carry generals into battle. He loved to paint generals going into battle. To him, the horse was a jeep, in the days before the jeep was invented. On the rock walls of a cave in France, nearly 22,000 years ago, someone painted this horse by the light of a fire. What did the cave artist see in a horse? We don't know. It's a mystery. What do you think? So one of the very, very first earliest pictures in art was a cave painting of a horse. 2,000 years ago in Greece, artists looked at horses and imagined them with wings. Pegasus was an immortal flying horse in Greek mythology. So you see that on a vase there. Greek artists painted horses with wings for symbols for ideas like immortality that are hard to show in a picture. 500 years ago in Persia, people thought a horse was for having fun on, and that's what the Persian artists saw when they looked at horses. This is called the game of polo. "500 years ago in Italy, the artist Raphael looked at a horse and he thought that a horse was for fighting dragons on. Ooh, it's called St. George Fighting the Dragon. Spooky. Of course, some artists looked at a horse and wanted to paint them just as they appeared in the natural world, doing things that horses really do. We call this kind of art realism. Other artists looked at horses and tried to capture them in a moment of time. We call this style of Impressionism. Impressionists' art often has a soft, slightly out of focus appearance. So see how it kind of looks blurry? Not in focus. This is called the harnessed horse. Then we come to what people call modern art. Some people call this crazy stuff. Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. But these are paintings, drawings, and sculptures that show that certain artists imagined when they looked at a horse. So please look at them very carefully. There are lots of ways of looking at things. Maybe these pictures have something to tell you. Surrealism is a way of looking at things, including horses, that draws on, in part, an artist's dreams. Dreams can be very strange, and so can surrealist art. So they're saying it can be very weird. Drawings of a two-headed horse and anchors and kites. And here's another surrealism painting with chess pieces. Man with a horse on his head. Expressionism is an art style that uses exaggerated colors and brushstrokes to show the emotion an artist wants us to feel when we look at something. What do you feel when you look at this? We've talked about color and emotions before. How do you feel when you look at this picture? Cubism is a way of looking at things from different angles all at the same time. Cubists don't want to copy things the way they normally look. A famous artist named Picasso liked horses. He liked bulls, too. He drew them a lot. Picasso is the artist that had all the funny faces all jumbled up, like the nose where the mouth was. Abstract art can have a subject, but it doesn't need one. It uses color and shape to create a visual experience. These abstract images do have subjects, horses and riders, of course. The artist used just a few lines and splotches of color in the woodwork, in the woodcut. But when you look at it, you can see a galloping horse and rider, right? Oh, so use your imagination. Do you see the head and the head of the rider, and then the legs? So it's a rider on a horse. This is called Lyrical by Kandinsky. Kandinsky made some famous art with circles, lots and lots of circles. What do you see when you look at branches and driftwood? The artist who made this sculpture saw a horse. It's called Untitled. This abstract drawing in space shows what looks like a big, strong horse, but you wouldn't want to sit on its back. All it is made of is thin steel wire. Ouch. Oh, so it's a sculpture made out of wire. An American painter named Jackson Pollock found a hobby horse head and glued it onto a canvas before doing this abstract dripping art. Pollock dripped, splattered, and flung paint as a way to insert himself into his painting. Maybe this is Pollock on a horse. So this is his interpretation of a horse. So what do you think? Is this stuff crazy, or is it crazy good? Looking at art and thinking about it is fun. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Museums are good places to find art. You can find art in other places too. Oh yes, you can. You can find art all around you. One such place to look is in books. The horses shown below and to the right are from books illustrated by a man who never studied drawings. His name was Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss didn't ride horses, but he looked at them carefully and saw something in them. Can you guess what that something was? So, look at that horse once again. A horse is many, many, many things, all depending on what you see. Dr. Seuss was really good at creating his own creatures and animals, and his inspirations come from horses. And in the back of this book, it talks about the famous paintings that were represented in the book, all different styles of horses. Well, I wanted again to read you that book because it's kind of a long one and we don't really have time for it in a normal class period, but it's a really great book about how different artists see horses and how they represent them in their artwork. So right now we're going to go and watch a couple videos on how to draw a horse and create our own horse.